Hello, I'm Sierra Scott. Welcome to It's All Good. This is a show dedicated to people, places, companies, and organizations that are working hard to make the world a better place to live. Here on It's All Good, we've done stories on singers, songwriters, and even a guitar maker. But I'll venture a guess that this is one instrument you've never heard of. It's called the bones, and even if you've heard songs where they've been played, there's a good chance you had no idea you were listening to them. Believe it or not, the best bones player in the world lives in Winfield, Kansas, and he says playing the bones has taken him to places he's never dreamed of going. This is what the bones sound like, at least when they're played by the best bones player in the world.
I never in my wildest dream would ever think of doing this as a profession.
So how in the world does someone become a bones player? Barry Patton says it started with an accident involving Cecil Hyatt.
And he slammed my finger in the car door, and that's what happened to that finger right there. That's how this whole deal got started, believe it or not.
At that time, Barry was 13 years old.
He said, "Oh my gosh," he said, "I slammed your finger." I said, "Oh, it's not bad." And little did I know it had crushed the whole end of it. I didn't know it, and I was going there like this. And I feel so bad. He said, "I'm going to give you a set of bones."
Not only that, he gave Barry his first lesson.
He was there in the car, and he was showing me how to do that. And I thought, I'll never learn how to play the bones, not like Cecil. He was a good man at setting you down and saying, "Now this is how you hold them. You know, and they need to be between the index finger and the middle finger, and you got to put the pressure and the bows away from each other." And more or less told you the movement to make the roll. You know, the ta 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 ta. You know, and then you do a figure eight, and then you do the stop. And you're making a lot of that rhythm by just clicking, by just snapping your wrist. I'm going.
Sounds easy, right? It's not.
And I heard them and I went, you know, that is a really unique sound. And I was a drummer at the time, virtually dropped the drums, picked up the bones.
And he's never looked back since. With his right hand in a cast, Barry initially started playing with his other hand.
So I was playing left-handed just here in the house and thinking I'll never learn these. So I just put them up. And a day would go by. Well, I'd get them out and I'd play a little bit, and I couldn't get it. And one day it hit me. About 30 days after I got them, I thought, well, there's that sound I'm looking for.
A sound like this. Barry can play bones with both hands equally well, which is something very few people can do.
I practiced, and I basically just a lot of practice.
I guess you could say that Barry was born with music in his bones. Barry's grandfather was a fiddle player. His uncle Byron Berline is a fiddle player too. Some say he's the best in the world. Berline was a studio musician, so Barry started practicing with copies of the albums Byron sent to him.
Very up-tempo bluegrass, you know. He was kind of on the cutting floor of almost newgrass. The stuff you hear today that's more progressive.
At that time, Byron was playing with people like the Rolling Stones. Today, Barry is being joined by Vicki and Mike Theobald. These three performers are so good, they play together for us without even rehearsing first.
You know, when I was 13, I did it because I wanted to be in with the bluegrass band because my uncle was so popular then, and he still is today, you know. And then eventually one thing led to another, and it just kind of exploded.
Because of his amazing ability to play such a rare instrument, he's had all kinds of amazing experiences. When Barry turned 17, he auditioned for Mason Williams, who wrote Classical Gas.
And thinking I would not get into, but he said, "No, you're playing tonight with a symphony." And since then, I've always been his bone player, you know, until he retired. And that was a big highlight in my career, getting to sit on stage with Mason Williams in playing classical gas.
Barry has also played the bones in China.
We did like 7, 8 different shows through Beijing, Shanghai, Ningbo. We did some of the bigger cities we toured and had very big crowds. Most of the Chinese over there had never heard bones played.
And they hadn't really heard the mandolin or the banjo for that matter either.
Some of the places were like standing room only. You thought you were Garth Brooks or something. And we signed autographs, and it was like the highlight of our career to get to do that.
Barry's career has even taken him to Broadway. He was invited to play for the premiere party when the play Oklahoma opened in New York City. While in town for that event, the group also played on Fox and Friends. Another of the highlights was playing on the Deadwood series. They flew Barry and the group out to Hollywood, California to shoot a part in the movie.
We went out there, and I would have never in my wildest dreams ever got to think about, let alone being in the movie, but playing the background music for it. And if you get to listen to it, you really hear the fiddle and bones mainly through the whole wedding scene. And he and I just sat back there in the background playing, and they were filming, and you know.
Another rehearsal, guys.
You know, they went in and dressed you all up and got your garb on and a little derby hat, and you sit up there on a buckboard, and you basically had to airplay everything. You couldn't touch the strings. You couldn't play the bones. You had to act like you were playing them.
Was that hard?
Yeah, a little bit, because we would have sound directors over there. I hear that bass.
They'd recorded the music in a recording studio earlier that day and had to just go through the motions for this shot.
Hollywood's Hollywood. They'll promise you the world, and hopefully the check's in the mail. You know how that works.
Barry was also on Megan Mullally's talk show, not just once, but twice. The producers of the show contacted him after seeing a clip of him on YouTube.
But they wanted to teach her how to play the bones. So she tried to play them, and she was, it was a great experience. Get to meet her, and then get to meet some of the other stars that were actually on the show. And 30 days later, this producer calls me again, says, would you come out and do another one of those shows? We want to see how she's progressed in this bone playing deal. I said, you're kidding me. No.
Was she any better?
She got, not really, she could hold them. She knew which way to hold them. You know, but as far as getting any rhythm out of it, you know, that takes a little doing. Like Vince Gill, he's tried to play the bones, and he said, I think if I need a bone player, I'm calling you, Barry. It'll be quite a long time to do, you know, to get them both going.
When somebody's very good at it, it looks deceptively easier than it is.
Yep.
Because you're so good at it, everybody goes, oh, well, I can do that.
It is.
So could I measure up? We decided to put me to the test.
There you go. So you can feel it.
Yeah.
Ready?
Aren't I good? Maybe I have a future in this after all.
Good. And I call them cowboy castanets now. I just like the way these record. Then you can just tone them down just a little bit. And
Bones were originally made out of real bones.
get regular cow ribs, you know, back in the probably 1600s is where, that's how they got the name bones. There's just so much difference, and they're heavier. I don't like the way, you know, because they were made out of cow ribs or shin bones out of a cow or out of a bison, say a buffalo. We got some made out of deer.
But now they're usually made of something else.
You know, any good hardwood, but Osage orange, like I was saying, that is what I make mine out of. That's called hedge or bodark. It's a yellow wood, and it is like it's the hardest wood in Kansas as far as I'm concerned.
They can also be made of ebony or rosewood.
These were made over in Germany.
And each has its own distinct sound. The bones are also referred to as rhythm sticks.
You know, the minstrel show days, they were made out of wood. You know, I've kind of studied that, and they were all the wooden bones.
Bones playing actually began overseas.
They even go back to as far as Egyptian times. Irish music, they play them a lot in Irish back in the early, you know, 1800s, somewhere in there. They're made out of rosewood. I mean, they're almost ear-piercing. Yeah. But back in those days, they didn't have microphones.
And you don't even have to be able to read music, since there's really no music written specifically for the bones. But that makes it sound a lot easier to do than it really is. I
don't know, there's probably 4 really main rhythms I do. I actually I make up that part as I go. I can hear it, you hear it in your head, you get it in your head, how that song goes. As long as they know when the ending is. The ending and the stopping and the starting of the song is very critical to me. There's music for drums, but there's no double click here, click in a roll and a figure 8 here, because everybody plays to their ear. It's just the sound that it makes and the rhythm that you add to the music. People come up and say, you know, it adds so much to the music. It fills up the gaps in between the banjos and the fiddles and the guitars. You know, so I kind of take the place of the drummer when the drummer's not around, but we have a duo every once in a while.
That'd be fun.
They were a lost art. If people look back in the 70s, in the 80s, nobody really were playing the bones.
Now the student has become the teacher. Now Barry goes into schools. At last count, he's sold about 3,000 sets of bones. It's amazing the reach Barry has had from Winfield, Kansas.
It's really nice to get to pass it on, because that's what Cecil Hyatt wanted me to do when I was growing up. And they went all over the world, from China to Alaska, Australia. We've had a lot of fun. Yeah. It's taken me more places than I ever, ever dreamed of. Yeah, it's and I'm just a diesel mechanic here in Winfield.
A diesel mechanic that's traveled all over the world playing the bones, that is. If you want to learn to play the bones, Barry has this website where you can even buy a pair and get an instructional DVD where he teaches you how to play them.